Dear participants, let me introduce the presentation on the topic that you can see on the screen. The complexity of the instrumental study of bats against the background of the legal requirement to assess the impact of wind park on bats makes the organization and implementation of monitoring of their existing conditions in technogenic areas completely urgent. National legislation clearly declares the need for such work, but unfortunately there is no methodological standard for collecting and analyzing information. That's why researchers of bats on the territories of wind parks are forced to rely on international practices. The main goal of the research was to study the vocal activity of bats in order to find out changes in the ecological state of animal populations potentially occurring because of the construction and operation of the wind park. The study of bats was carried out on the territory of the Zaporizhzhia wind park in 2010 to 2021, and you can see it on the figure 1. In total, 18 transects have been allocated in the Zaporizhzhia wind park, which are located along the lines of installation of wind turbines. Figure 1 shows a GPS track that covers all transects. The passage of the transects was carried out at a vehicle speed of 20 to 25 km per hour. Here you can see the masses of gathering information and the used equipment. To work on transect, the detector with an external microphone, which you can see on the figure 2, was used. The microphone was installed on a special plate fixed to the roof of the expedition vehicle. At the stationary vantage point, there was used a detector which automatically and in a wide range recorded the echolocation calls of bats in the interval between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., which you can see on figure 3. In 2017, for the first time in Ukraine, a broadband automatic detector was installed on the meteorological mast of the Zaporizhzhia wind park at a height of 42 meters on figure 4. Here you can see some information about the operation time. To obtain more specific information on the territorial distribution of bats in the project area, we use the kernel density method for point objects. The technique calculates the number of points of or polylineal objects per unit area density using the function of the kernel to fit their surface, which gradually narrowed to each point or polyline. Based on the results, the activity index for all bats is determined using the following formula. You can see the interpretation of formula symbols on the slide. Such calculation makes it possible to characterize the periods of minimum and maximum activity of bats for further action and measures for the management of natural environmental complexes. Sufficiently extensive field research data are needed for a qualitative assessment of the wind farm impact on bat population. The most complete studies were in 2019, so we will give a brief description of them. Table 1 shows the result of 3 methods that were applied on the territory of the wind park along the passage of the power transmission lines, partly in settlements and during the expedition vehicles crossing between transects and vantage points. To characterize the behavior of bats, absolute indicators are inefficient, so there was used the activity index calculated for all 3 methods and shown in the table 2. And figure 6. The maximum indicator in the first half of the year was in the middle of June, which falls on the time of the departure of young bats after the breeding season. In the second half of the year, the highest activity of bat was recorded at the end of August and indicates the beginning of autumn migration. An analysis of the bat behavior in different periods of the life cycle is shown in Table 3. As you can see, the maximum activity of animals was recorded in the period of disintegration of colonies, the beginning of autumn migrations and grouping in flocks, the second half of August, which confirms our long-term survey. Such results will enable us to assess the wind park impact on bat populations and develop measures to minimize the negative impact. Research carried out in 2017 showed the following. Bats also hunt at a high of 42 meters and above. In total, 22 signals were recorded by detector. The population of bats using these altitude intervals is different periods of the year ranged from 1.7 to 3.4%. Most species of bats marked by the detector within the wind farm and adjacent areas are widespread and with a stable population status. There is a need for zoning the entire territory and identifying places of animals' concentration. To do this, we use the kernel density method. Taking into account the numerical values and the 2-kilometer radius of influence of individual points, we divided the obtained indicators into 6 gradations, which were respectively characterized by low, medium and high signal density, 2 gradations each. In accordance with the calculation of the activity index of bats, we state that the most dangerous period for them is August and the first half of September. It is during this period the measures are needed to minimize the negative impact of wind turbines on bats. As an environmental management of the Zaporizhzhia wind park area, we suggest using the experience of colleagues when the start-up rotor speed was increased from 3.5 to 5.6 meters per second. Thus, a comparison of the data obtained in 2010 to 2021 concerning the study of foraging behavior and vocal activity of bats allows us to draw the following conclusions that can be seen on slides. You can see the total number of registered voices. You can see the index of bat activity depending on the research methodology. Forage and migratory behavior of bats calculated by determining the index of their activity show the average values. You can see the distribution of bats in the project area. You can see the species compositing of bats. There are no species of the category endangered among the identified bats. The distribution areas of all species of the project area are quite wide. Within the Zaporizhzhia wind park, there are no endemic species or unique habitats of this existence. You can see the analysis of the bat distribution carried out by the kernel density method. August and September are the most dangerous for bats. Methods for changing the startup speed and ultrasonic bat deterrence are effective and can be recommended as environmental management. Thank you for your attention.